Earlier this week, the Gauteng Education MEC Matume launched the Operation Molao Khutla in the West Rand. The campaign basically aims to deal with violence in schools. Latest figures show that an increase has been recorded, an alarming increase, in fact, in violent crimes, including murder, rape and assault, all happening within the school environment. Part of the operation will see armed security deployed at 75 schools which have been identified as problematic. Let's get the perspective now from the Foundation for Education and Social Justice, Africa Deputy Chairperson, Hendrick Makaneta. A very good morning to you, sir. Good to speak to you. So, how have our schools become so increasingly violent?
Well, to be quite honest with you, as activists in the terrain, we have had enough about school violence. We know as we speak now, we have already lost a number of lives. You know, not long ago, a deputy principal was shot at Tembisa. A teacher was killed in Northwest, in West Rand as well. Another teacher was killed. Learners as well are affected. Learners were stabbed. And I think that we must applaud the MEC, Mr. Chilwane, for taking drastic steps and visible steps to try and resolve this issue. It has been long overdue. We really want to see our, an environment which is conducive for learning and teaching, for the general well-being of all our learners, as well as all our teachers.
But is arming guards or deploying armed guards to schools conducive to a learning environment that should be what many people grew up with, a free space for children to be fully themselves? And by the way, by that, I'm not including the acts of violence, including rape, murder, etc. But can children really learn in an environment where there are men and women walking around with guns, for instance, if it gets to that?
Of course, the presence of law enforcement officers, the police, as well as the soldiers in schools will create great anxiety amongst the learners. Learners may not be able to cope with learning and teaching. But in this case, I think that the MEC is targeting the high-risk schools, where we know that, not a day goes by without any incident of violence. But other schools which are really doing well now will not be affected by this program, as far as I understand it. And it is for this reason that we think that all of these high-risk schools should be targeted. If it means deploying law enforcement, let it be so. Issues of, searching schools, for example, where there is a reasonable suspicion, I think that police should be able to come in at any time, to conduct search operations with a view to uncover these weapons that are carried by young people who come from communities. Remember, some of these learners, come from gangs which are in communities, and there is a need for, law enforcement to take drastic and visible steps to ensure that they eradicate all of these social ills, all of this, misconduct that is perpetrated against innocent learners by learners who find themselves engaged, in violent activities that emanate from communities.
Right. And I want to get us all some context here, because News 24 has in fact summed it up quite well, where they talk about the statistics from earlier this year, which said that between January and March, Gauteng had 8 murders, 14 attempted murders, 84 cases of rape, and 238 incidents of assault, with as well including grievous bodily harm, which occurred within the premises of educational facilities, including daycare centers and universities. So that means at every level of childhood to early adulthood, we're seeing these trends of violence being replicated. But these children, these teenagers, these young people are a reflection, are they not, of the violent society that we are as a country? Because even when you look at the numbers released by Minister Cele, we are killing each other more, we are raping one another more. So it's no different in schools.
Definitely. And unless something is done to deter these activities at school level, it means that we will continue to, produce a society that is violent in nature. You are correct. Murder, the crime of murder, rape, gender-based violence is very high in the country generally. And you have correctly indicated that these learners come from communities. So they bring this conduct right into schools. But unless we get the schools right, we may not be able to fully address these issues in the communities. We need to ensure that we teach our learners that they cannot be a law unto themselves. Young as they are the future. And if we want a brighter future for our children and grandchildren, we need to make sure that we deal with, these elements of crime within the schooling system. And I think that the NBC also indicated that, the government is not going to work alone. They are ready to collaborate with NGOs, with civil society, with parents as well. So we must be able to lend a hand of support generally as a civil society, working hand in glove with parents. I'm sure you'll agree with me that education on its own is a triangle that requires the collaboration of parents, learners, and teachers. Unless we actively engage and work together, we will not be able to disrupt these tendencies of crime in our schools. And for us as activists, that is a cause for great concern.
Mr. Hendrick Makaneta, good to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time. That was the Foundation for Education and Social Justice Africa's Deputy Chairperson, Hendrick Makaneta.